Have you ever felt like you're the only one going through tough times? Do you ever wonder why, despite being surrounded by people, you still feel lonely? Why does it seem like no one understands what you're going through? And does that mean something is wrong with you? These are questions many of us face in our daily lives, and they can make us feel isolated, disconnected from the world. But what if I told you that feeling alone is not something to fear or avoid? What if being alone could actually be the beginning of something transformative? Take a simple example. Imagine a tree growing in the middle of a forest. Surrounded by other trees, it still stands on its own, drawing strength from the soil, the sunlight, and the air around it. Just like that tree, we too can find strength within ourselves, even when it seems like nothing is going our way. Solitude can be a powerful teacher, helping us to discover who we really are. Welcome to Wisdom Woven. In this video series, we're going to explore the journey of solitude and inner peace, diving deep into Buddhist teachings that can help you embrace those moments when you feel alone. By the end of this series, you'll learn how to turn loneliness into a path of growth and self-awareness. So, make sure to stick around. Before we dive deeper into this topic, I just want to remind you, there are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% of viewers are subscribed. If you're enjoying this content and want more insights like this, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support really makes a difference. In Buddhism, the experience of being alone is often seen not as a punishment or a sign of failure, but as an opportunity for self-reflection. The Buddha himself sought solitude as a way to understand the nature of suffering and to find a deeper connection to the world. By turning inward, we can see that loneliness is not a permanent state but a passing feeling, one that can lead us to greater wisdom. Understanding the nature of suffering and loneliness. Sit with me for a moment. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Can you feel that small discomfort in your chest? That nagging feeling that something is missing? That's loneliness. It creeps in when we least expect it, sometimes in a crowded room, sometimes when we're all by ourselves. But do you ever wonder why we feel lonely? Why this sense of being disconnected from others, from the world, seems so strong at times? Loneliness, like all forms of suffering, comes from deep within us. And as a Zen master, let me share something important with you. Suffering is part of the human condition. In Buddhism, we call it dukkha. This word doesn't just mean suffering in the physical sense, but also that deep sense of unease, of things not being quite right. We all experience it, and we often try to run from it, distracting ourselves with people, entertainment, or material things. But these are temporary solutions. They don't get to the root of why we suffer, why we feel lonely. So, why do we suffer? Why do we feel lonely? The answer lies in how we see the world. We think we are separate from everything and everyone around us. We create an image of self and others. This division is what causes our loneliness. When we believe we are a small, separate self, we naturally feel cut off. But what if this sense of separation isn't real? What if it's just a trick of the mind, a false way of seeing things? Buddhism teaches us that we are not alone in the way we think we are. The Buddha saw this clearly. He taught that we are all connected, that everything in life is interdependent. The problem is, we often don't see it this way. We see life as something to control, and when things don't go our way, we feel isolated. But this is just one perspective, and it's not the full picture. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in front of a mirror. You see your reflection, and it feels like a real, separate person looking back at you. But you know it's just an image, a reflection of the real you. Loneliness works the same way. It feels real, but it's just a reflection of how we're seeing ourselves in relation to the world. The mirror of our mind shows us that we are alone, but it doesn't show the whole truth. The truth, from a Buddhist perspective, is that our suffering, our loneliness, comes from how we see ourselves. We identify too strongly with the I, the self that feels separate from everything. But the self is just a construct, a temporary illusion. In Buddhism, this is known as anatta, or no self. It's the idea that there is no fixed, permanent self that exists apart from everything else. When we realize this, when we stop clinging to this false sense of self, our loneliness starts to fade away. But understanding this intellectually is one thing. Feeling it in your heart, living it in your daily life, is another. How do we begin to see through the illusion of loneliness? It starts with mindfulness. In Buddhism, mindfulness is about being fully present in the moment. It's about paying attention to what's happening inside and around us without judgment, without trying to change it. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to notice that our thoughts and feelings are not fixed. They come and go, like clouds in the sky. And just like the clouds, our loneliness is not permanent. It's just a passing feeling. When we sit in mindfulness, we can observe our loneliness without being overwhelmed by it. We can see it for what it is, a temporary state of mind, not a permanent reality. This is a key teaching in Buddhism. Everything is impermanent, including our suffering and loneliness. Nothing stays the same forever, and that includes the way we feel. Let me tell you a story. There was once a young monk who came to his Zen master, saying, "Master, I feel so alone. It's like no one understands me. What should I do?" The master looked at him calmly and replied, "Sit with your loneliness. Do not push it away. Do not try to fix it. Just be with it." The monk, confused but trusting his master, did as he was told. Over time, he began to see that his loneliness wasn't something to fear or avoid. It was just a part of his experience, like the wind passing through the trees. He realized that he didn't have to hold on to it or make it go away. It would pass on its own. This is a powerful lesson. When we stop trying to escape our loneliness and instead observe it, we start to see it differently. It loses its grip on us. We begin to understand that our loneliness is not something to fight, but something to understand. It's a teacher, showing us where we are holding on to false ideas about ourselves and the world. You see, loneliness, like all suffering, comes from attachment. We attach ourselves to the idea of being separate, of needing certain things or people to be happy. When those things or people aren't there, we feel incomplete, isolated. But in Buddhism, we are taught to let go of attachment. Not in a way that means we stop caring about people, but in a way that helps us see that our happiness doesn't depend on external things. It comes from within. The more we let go of the idea of a separate self, the more we begin to experience true connection, not just with other people, but with life itself. When we stop identifying with the self that feels alone, we can start to see the interconnectedness of everything. The trees, the sky, the people around us, they are all part of the same flow of life. We are not separate from the world. We are deeply connected to it. And this brings us to an important insight. Loneliness can be transformed. It doesn't have to be something that weighs us down. In fact, it can be a doorway to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world. When we embrace our solitude, we start to discover a peace that doesn't depend on others. We find a strength that comes from knowing we are never truly alone. So, the next time you feel lonely, remember this. Loneliness is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's not something you need to fix. It's simply a feeling, a reflection of how you are seeing yourself in the moment. And just like any other feeling, it will pass. If you can sit with it, observe it, and understand it, you'll begin to see the deeper truth, that you are always connected, even when you feel alone. In Buddhism, this understanding is the first step to true peace. By letting go of the false idea of a separate self, we can open ourselves to the reality of interconnection. And in this understanding, loneliness begins to lose its power over us. It becomes a guide, leading us to greater wisdom and inner peace. Buddhist concept of anatta, the idea of no self. So you've come to seek understanding of the self, or perhaps the lack of it? You're not alone on this journey, though it may feel that way. Many before you have asked the same question, who am I? It's a question that can feel overwhelming, but it is the very heart of what we will explore today. You see, much of our suffering comes from how we see ourselves, our identity, our ego, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. But what if I told you that there is no permanent self as you imagine it? This is where the Buddhist teaching of anatta, or no self, comes into play. It's not a simple idea to grasp at first. We spend so much of our lives thinking about ourselves, what we want, what we need, what others think of us. We are raised to believe that we are individual, separate beings, and that our identity is fixed. But anatta challenges that. It asks us to let go of the illusion that there is an unchanging self at the center of everything we experience. Imagine, if you will, a river. If you stand by it, you see the water flowing by, always moving, always changing. Is the river the same today as it was yesterday? And yet, we call it by the same name. The water you see is not the same. The current is not the same. Even the riverbanks might shift over time. But still, we think of it as one thing, one river. The self is much like that. What we call I or me is ever-changing, flowing from one moment to the next. Our thoughts, emotions, and even our bodies are in constant flux, yet we cling to the idea of a solid, unchanging self. Now, think of your life. The way you saw yourself as a child is different from the way you see yourself today, isn't it? You've grown, you've changed, and what you once thought defined you may no longer be true. Perhaps there was a time when you identified with a particular role. Maybe you saw yourself as a student, or a friend, or even someone who was always shy. But over time, those roles shifted. You changed. Yet, we often hold on to these old identities, even when they no longer serve us. Buddhism teaches that this clinging to the idea of a permanent self is the source of much of our suffering. We become attached to who we think we are, to the image we've created of ourselves. And when life doesn't match that image, we feel lost, confused, even angry. But what if you could let go of that? What if you could see yourself not as a fixed entity but as something fluid, something always evolving? Let me share a simple story with you. A student once came to a Zen master and asked, "Master, who am I really?" The master replied, "You are like a cloud in the sky. Sometimes you take one shape, sometimes another. But no matter what shape you take, the essence of the cloud remains free, untethered." The student frowned. "But clouds disappear, master. What happens then?" The master smiled. "Ah, and so does the self you cling to. It is only temporary." This teaching is not meant to scare you or make you feel lost. In fact, it is meant to free you. When you realize that there is no permanent self, you no longer have to cling to the past or worry so much about the future. You can live more fully in the present, responding to life as it unfolds, rather than trying to force it to fit the image you've created of yourself. Let's take a moment to reflect on this. Right now, think about something you identify strongly with. Perhaps it's your job, your role in your family, or a particular skill you have. Now, imagine that this thing, this identity, is like a coat you wear. You've worn it for a long time, so long that you may have forgotten it's even there. But what if you took it off? What would be left? Would you still be you? According to the teaching of anatta, you would. But you would also realize that you are not defined by that coat. You are not limited to just one identity, one story. You are something much larger, much more fluid. This is the freedom that comes from understanding anatta. You are not confined by the labels you or others have placed on you. You are free to change, to grow, to flow like the river. Now, let's talk about how this concept can help in daily life. When we experience loneliness, it's often because we believe that the self we are is disconnected from others. We think, "I am alone," or "no one understands me." But when you realize that the self is not fixed, this changes. You start to see that loneliness is just a passing state, not something that defines who you are. In fact, the boundaries between self and other begin to blur. You start to see that just as you are ever-changing, so are the people around you. We are all part of a greater flow, interconnected and interdependent. The self that feels alone today may feel connected tomorrow, and that too will change. This realization can bring a sense of peace. You no longer need to cling to the idea of being alone, because you understand that the self who feels alone is not permanent. And in letting go of that, you open yourself up to new experiences, new connections, and a deeper understanding of the world around you. But don't misunderstand. This doesn't mean that you stop caring about yourself or others. On the contrary, when you let go of the fixed idea of self, you become more compassionate, more understanding. You see that just as you are constantly changing, so are others. This allows you to be kinder, more patient, both with yourself and with those around you. So, as you move forward on your journey, remember, the self you cling to is not as solid as it seems. Like a river, like a cloud, You are always changing, always flowing. And in that flow, there is great freedom. You are not bound by the past or the future. You are free to be present in this moment, to embrace the ever-changing nature of life, and to find peace in that. This is the essence of anatta. It is not about losing yourself. It's about realizing that you were never confined to oneself in the first place. It's about understanding that you are part of something much larger, much more beautiful. And in that understanding, you will find the peace you seek. Breathe deeply and let this realization settle in. You are not alone. You are not fixed. You are free. Embracing impermanence, anicca, in the flow of life. Dear one, sit with me for a moment. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Do you feel that? The air moving in and out of your body, the rise and fall of your chest? That, my friend, is a reminder of the constant flow of life. Everything around us, every moment, every breath, it all changes, just like the wind. This is the essence of impermanence, or as the Buddha called it, anicca. In our lives, we often hold on to things, don't we? We hold on to people, moments, objects, even feelings. Why do we do that? Perhaps we believe that if we hold on tight enough, things won't change. But let me tell you a secret. Everything changes, no matter how tightly you hold on. Nothing stays the same, not even for a moment. This is the nature of life. And rather than resisting it, we must learn to embrace it. Let's begin by understanding what impermanence means. Imagine a river. It flows continuously, never stopping, never the same in any 2 moments. The water you see now is not the water you will see in the next second. And yet, the river is always there, always flowing. Life is like this river. It moves, it shifts, it transforms. Sometimes it flows gently, other times it crashes with force, but it never stands still. Now, why is this important to understand? Because much of our suffering comes from resisting this natural flow. We want things to stay the same. We want happiness to last forever. We want sadness to disappear and never return. But the truth is, everything is fleeting. When we grasp too tightly to something, whether it's a joyful moment or a painful one, we set ourselves up for disappointment. But when we learn to flow with life, like the river, we can find peace even in the midst of change. Let me tell you a simple story. There was once a young monk who came to me, troubled by the loss of a dear friend. "Master," he said, "I don't know how to go on. My friend is gone, and I feel like a part of me has been taken away. I miss him every day, and I can't seem to move forward." I looked at him and said, "My child, have you ever watched the moon rise over the mountains?" He nodded, a bit confused. "The moon is beautiful, isn't it? And when it rises, it fills the sky with its soft light. But does the moon stay in the sky forever?" "No, master," he replied. "It sets after a while." "Exactly," I said. "The moon rises, shines, and then disappears. But does its setting mean the beauty of the moon is lost forever?" The young monk thought for a moment, then shook his head. "No, master. The moon will rise again. And that is how life works. People, experiences, emotions, they come and go, like the moon rising and setting. We cannot hold on to them forever, but their beauty, their value, remains in our hearts. When we stop trying to keep things as they are, we can appreciate them fully, for however long they last. The Buddha taught us that clinging to permanence is one of the roots of suffering. We try to make the impermanent permanent, but it's like trying to catch the wind with our hands. The more we chase it, the more it slips away. So, what should we do? We must learn to accept, to let go, and to flow with life. Now, you may be wondering, how does this apply to your loneliness? You see, the feeling of being alone is also impermanent. Sometimes it feels overwhelming, like a storm. But just like the storm, loneliness passes. It may return, but it will never stay forever. Every emotion, whether joy or sorrow, is just a wave in the ocean of your life. Waves rise, but they always fall back into the sea. They do not last forever. You may have days when you feel incredibly lonely, when it seems like no one understands you or cares for you. But remember, this feeling is not permanent. It will pass, just as every feeling does. In the meantime, instead of resisting it, try to embrace it. What can loneliness teach you? Perhaps it can show you something about yourself that you hadn't noticed before. Perhaps it can make you stronger, more compassionate toward others who feel the same way. In Buddhism, we are taught not to run from discomfort, but to face it with a gentle heart. When we accept the impermanence of all things, we begin to see life differently. We stop fearing change and start welcoming it. Loneliness, like all emotions, is a part of this constant flow of life. And if we can learn to embrace it rather than fight it, we will find that it loses much of its power over us. Take a moment to think about the seasons. Spring turns into summer, summer into autumn, and autumn into winter. Each season brings its own beauty, its own challenges. We don't try to hold on to summer when winter comes, do we? No, we adjust, we adapt, and we find the beauty in the new season. Life is just like this. It moves through different stages, each with its own lessons, each with its own purpose. So, when you feel lonely, remember that this is just one season of your life. It will change. Nothing stays the same forever, not your feelings, not your circumstances. And in that change, there is hope. There is always something new around the corner, even if we cannot see it yet. The Buddha encouraged us to live in the present moment, to accept life as it is, not as we wish it to be. When we do this, we stop fighting against the current, and we start flowing with it. This is the key to finding peace in the midst of loneliness, in the midst of any difficult emotion. It is all part of the great river of life, always moving, always changing, always teaching us something new. So, my dear one, the next time you feel the weight of loneliness pressing down on you, take a deep breath and remind yourself that this too shall pass. You are like the river, constantly flowing, constantly changing. Embrace the flow of life, and you will find that even in solitude, you are never truly alone. Remember, impermanence is not something to fear. It is the very thing that makes life beautiful, because it teaches us to appreciate each moment as it is, knowing that it will not last forever. When we can do this, we will find peace, not just in the joyful times, but even in the moments of loneliness. Let the flow of life guide you, and trust that, like the river, you will always move forward, even when you feel lost. The beauty of life is in its constant change. Embrace it, and you will find peace. The power of mindfulness, present in every moment. You have come to the part where we talk about mindfulness. Such a simple word, yet it holds the key to so much. In this journey of life, we often find ourselves caught up in thoughts about the past or worries about the future. Our minds drift away, taking us far from the present moment. But what if I told you that the present moment is all we ever truly have? It is in this moment, right now, that everything is happening. And it is only by being fully present that we can truly experience life, with all its beauty and challenges. Mindfulness is the art of being fully aware of the present moment. It is not something you have to go somewhere to find. It is right here, with you, always. Whether you are eating, walking, or simply breathing, mindfulness invites you to be completely engaged with whatever you are doing. In Buddhism, this practice is fundamental. It is through mindfulness that we can transform the way we see the world, the way we feel, and even the way we interact with others. Think about this. How many times have you been doing something, but your mind was elsewhere? Maybe you were eating, but instead of tasting the food, you were thinking about a conversation you had earlier. Or perhaps you were talking to someone, but your mind was already planning what you needed to do next. We often live this way, without even realizing it, missing the richness of the present moment. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to bring our attention back to the now. Let me share with you a simple practice that you can start right away. It's something you can do anywhere, at any time. Focus on your breath. Yes, your breath. Inhale deeply and feel the air filling your lungs. Exhale slowly, noticing how the air leaves your body. This is mindfulness in its simplest form. It's not about trying to empty your mind of thoughts. It's about becoming aware of your body and your mind, without judgment. As you breathe in and out, you will notice thoughts arising. They may be about something that happened earlier, or they may be worries about the future. Let those thoughts come, but don't follow them. Just observe them, as if you were watching clouds float by in the sky. You don't have to react to them, or hold on to them. They will pass, just like clouds do. This practice of mindfulness is a way of training your mind to stay present, to stop wandering. Now, you might be wondering, how does mindfulness help with feeling alone? When we feel alone, it is often because our mind has created a story around it. We tell ourselves that no one cares, that we are isolated, or that we are not connected to others. But mindfulness allows us to see these thoughts for what they are, just thoughts. They are not necessarily true. By bringing our attention to the present moment, we can step away from these stories and simply observe them. Imagine sitting by a river, watching the water flow by. The water is your thoughts and emotions. Some are calm and gentle, while others are fast and turbulent. But no matter how the water flows, you are just sitting there, observing. This is what mindfulness teaches us, to watch our thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them. When we do this, we begin to realize that we are not our thoughts. Our thoughts come and go, but our true nature remains the same. In this way, mindfulness helps us break free from the patterns that make us feel alone or disconnected. When we are present, we begin to see that we are connected to everything around us. The sound of the wind, the warmth of the sun, the taste of food, even the feeling of our feet on the ground. These are all part of the present moment, and when we are mindful, we are part of them, too. Buddhist teachings tell us that mindfulness is not just about being aware of ourselves, but also about being aware of others. When we are mindful, we become more sensitive to the people around us. We listen more deeply, without judgment. We see others more clearly, not through the lens of our own worries or biases, but as they truly are. This awareness creates a sense of connection, even when we are physically alone. In moments of solitude, mindfulness helps us turn inward, to explore our own mind and heart. It is in these moments that we can discover things about ourselves that we may not have noticed before. Maybe we will find that we have been holding on to certain fears or beliefs that are not serving us. Or maybe we will realize that we have been too hard on ourselves, expecting too much. Mindfulness gives us the space to see these things clearly, without judgment. Let me tell you, being alone is not the same as being lonely. When we are mindful, we can find peace and contentment in our own company. We begin to appreciate the quiet moments, the pauses between the busyness of life. We learn to enjoy our own presence, to be our own friend. This doesn't mean that we no longer need others, but it does mean that we no longer rely on others to fill a void. Through mindfulness, we realize that we are whole, just as we are. The practice of mindfulness is not something that happens overnight. It is a lifelong journey, and each moment is an opportunity to practice. Whether you are washing the dishes, driving, or simply sitting, you can bring mindfulness into your life. The more you practice, the more you will notice the small shifts in your mind. You will start to feel more grounded, more at peace with yourself and the world around you. Remember, mindfulness is not about trying to achieve something. It is not a race, nor is it about perfection. It is about being present, moment by moment, with whatever is happening. There will be times when your mind wanders, and that's okay. Simply bring it back, gently, without frustration. This is the practice. In Buddhism, we often say, "Be here now." These simple words hold a profound truth. When we are here, fully present, we are not lost in the past or anxious about the future. We are living life as it unfolds, moment by moment, and in this presence, we find a deeper sense of peace, even in moments of solitude. So, take a breath. Feel it. Be present with it. This moment, right now, is all you need. This is the power of mindfulness. It brings us back to ourselves, to the present, and in doing so, it transforms our experience of life. No longer are we at the mercy of our thoughts and emotions. Instead, we become the observer, the one who is fully awake to the beauty of this moment. Compassion and loving kindness, karuna and metta. Sit down, breathe deeply, and let's talk about something essential: compassion and loving kindness. In our lives, we meet many people. Some are kind, some are challenging, and some make us feel hurt or ignored. Yet, what if I told you that the most powerful thing you can offer to everyone you meet, regardless of how they treat you, is compassion? What if love is not just a feeling but a practice, something that can change your life, as well as the lives of others? Buddhism teaches us two important concepts: karuna and metta. These words might sound complex, but their meanings are simple and beautiful. Karuna is compassion, the deep desire to alleviate the suffering of others. Metta is loving kindness, the unconditional wish for others to be happy. Together, these two ideas form the heart of what it means to live a life of peace and connection with others. Now, let me ask you a question. When you see someone struggling, how do you feel? Do you rush to help? Or do you sometimes turn away because you're too busy, tired, or maybe even a little afraid? We've all been there, but this is where Karuna comes in. Compassion is about understanding the suffering of others and wanting to do something about it. You don't need to have all the answers, and you don't need to be a hero. Simply showing that you care, offering a smile, a kind word, or a listening ear can be enough to ease someone's pain. Buddhism teaches that we are all connected. The suffering of one person affects us all, even if we can't always see it. When you offer compassion, you not only help the person in front of you, but you also transform yourself. You start to see the world differently. You realize that every being, human or otherwise, wants the same things: happiness, peace, and freedom from pain. Karuna is the practice of reminding ourselves of this truth every day. But compassion isn't always easy, is it? Sometimes, people hurt us, and it's hard to feel anything but anger or frustration. This is where metta comes in. Loving kindness doesn't depend on how others treat us. It's not about liking someone because they are kind to us. It's about wishing for their happiness regardless of their actions. It may sound strange at first, but when you practice metta, you begin to feel lighter. Holding on to anger or resentment weighs you down, but offering loving kindness to others, even those who hurt you, sets you free. Imagine a situation where someone has wronged you. Maybe a friend betrayed your trust or a family member said something hurtful. The natural reaction is to close off, to hold on to that pain. But think of your mind like a garden. Anger, resentment, and hurt are weeds that can take over, choking the flowers of peace and happiness. When you practice metta, you are pulling out those weeds, making room for beauty to grow. How do you practice metta? It starts with a simple wish: may all beings be happy. At first, you can start with yourself: may I be happy. May I be free from suffering. Then, extend this wish to your loved ones: may they be happy. May they be free from suffering. Gradually, you expand this wish to include people you don't know, and eventually, even those who have hurt you. It may take time, but as you practice, you will feel a shift in your heart. The tightness of anger will loosen, and the warmth of kindness will grow. There's an old story about the Buddha that I love to share. One day, a man came to the Buddha and began to insult him, calling him names and speaking with great anger. The Buddha simply sat there, calm and unmoved. The man, confused, asked why the Buddha wasn't reacting. The Buddha smiled and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man replied, "To the one who offers it." The Buddha said, "Exactly. I do not accept your anger, so it remains with you." This story teaches us a valuable lesson. We have the choice not to accept the anger, hatred, or negativity of others. We can respond with metta instead, offering them kindness, even when they offer us harm. This doesn't mean we become passive or allow others to mistreat us. Instead, it means that we don't let their negativity affect our inner peace. Metta is like a shield, protecting us from the harmful emotions of others while allowing us to stay connected to our own kindness. But compassion and loving kindness are not just practices for dealing with difficult people. They are also the foundation of strong, positive relationships. When we practice karuna and metta, we create a space for genuine connection with others. We stop seeing people as competitors, enemies, or obstacles, and start seeing them as fellow beings on the same journey of life. We become more patient, more understanding, and more forgiving. Think about the people in your life, your friends, your family, your colleagues. How would your relationships change if you approached each interaction with compassion and loving kindness? What if, instead of reacting with frustration or impatience, you took a deep breath and reminded yourself, may this person be happy. May they be free from suffering? This simple shift in mindset can transform not only your relationships but your entire experience of life. Now, I understand that practicing karuna and metta isn't always easy. It's something we have to work at, just like any skill. There will be days when you feel tired, angry, or hurt, and compassion may feel out of reach. That's okay. The key is to keep practicing, even when it's difficult. Each small act of kindness, each moment of compassion, plants a seed. And over time, those seeds will grow into a life filled with peace, joy, and connection. In Buddhism, we often talk about the idea of right intention. This means that our thoughts and actions should come from a place of kindness, not selfishness. When we practice karuna and metta, we align ourselves with this principle. We begin to live with a sense of purpose, knowing that our actions are helping to reduce the suffering of others. This gives our lives meaning, even in the smallest moments. So, the next time you encounter someone who is struggling, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, how can I offer compassion in this situation? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Sometimes, just being present, listening, or offering a kind word is enough. And remember, compassion isn't just for others. It's also for yourself. Be gentle with yourself on this journey. You are learning, growing, and doing your best. And as you go about your day, keep practicing metta. May all beings be happy. May they be free from suffering. Let this simple wish guide your actions, and watch as it transforms not only your life but the world around you. Compassion and loving kindness are powerful forces, and when we practice them, we are contributing to a world that is more peaceful, more loving, and more connected. Detachment and letting go. Reducing attachment to ego. The art of letting go. It is something that many of us struggle with, isn't it? We hold on so tightly to things, people, and ideas, thinking that they define who we are. Yet, the tighter we grasp, the more we suffer. The Buddha spoke of this often, teaching that attachment is the root of much of our pain. In this part, let us explore together how detachment can bring us peace and help us reduce the weight of the ego. You see, attachment is a powerful force. It starts so small, often unnoticed, like a tiny seed planted in the mind. Perhaps we are attached to a certain idea of ourselves, what we should be, how we should appear to others, or how life should unfold. These attachments form over time, shaping the way we view the world. We become convinced that our worth depends on maintaining control over these things. And when they slip away, as all things do in this ever-changing world, we feel the sting of suffering. Have you ever noticed how much we cling to the past or worry about the future? We think, if only things had gone a certain way, or what if things don't turn out as I hope? This is where attachment begins. We are so deeply tied to the outcome that we lose sight of the present moment. The ego feeds on these attachments, convincing us that without them, we are lost. But the truth is, none of these attachments define us. Letting go is the first step toward freeing ourselves from the weight of the ego. Now, do not mistake letting go for giving up or turning away from the world. No, it is not about neglecting your responsibilities or relationships. It is about realizing that you do not control the outcomes of life, and that is okay. Detachment is about being present without being controlled by your desires or fears. Think of it this way. Imagine you are holding onto a rope. You pull and pull, trying to bring something closer to you. But the harder you pull, the more your hands begin to burn. The rope cuts into your skin, and yet you hold on. Why? Because you believe that what's on the other end of the rope is what you need to be happy, to feel whole. Now, if you were to let go of the rope, what would happen? Yes, the rope would fall, but so would the pain. The tension in your hands would disappear, and you would feel relief. This is what letting go does for the mind. When you release your grip on the things you think define you, you begin to feel lighter. The suffering caused by your attachment begins to dissolve. And in that space, a new kind of peace arises, a peace that comes from knowing that you are not defined by your possessions, your status, or even the roles you play in life. In Buddhism, we talk about non-attachment as a way of freeing ourselves from this cycle of suffering. It does not mean you should not care about anything. It means you understand that everything is temporary. The things we cling to, the identities we build for ourselves, they are all impermanent. The Buddha called this understanding anicca, the truth of impermanence. Now, how does this relate to ego? You see, the ego is that voice inside you that says, I am this, or I am that. It loves to define itself through attachment. I am successful because I have this job. I am important because people respect me. I am happy because I have this relationship. But what happens when these things change? When the job is lost, when respect fades, or when relationships end? The ego shatters, and with it, so do we. Unless we learn the art of detachment. When you let go of the need to define yourself by external things, you begin to see the world more clearly. You realize that who you are is not tied to anything outside of you. This is where real freedom lies. The ego, with all its attachments, is like a heavy cloak you've been wearing for far too long. It weighs you down, makes you feel constrained. By letting go of that cloak, you discover that beneath it, you are already enough. It is important to note that letting go is not something that happens overnight. It is a practice. Like a plant that needs time to grow, the seed of detachment must be nurtured with patience and mindfulness. Start small. Notice the things you are attached to, whether it is material possessions, relationships, or even your own ideas about yourself. Begin by asking yourself, do I really need this to be happy? Is this attachment bringing me peace, or is it causing me suffering? One of the teachings that can help you with this is the practice of mindfulness. By being fully present in the moment, you can observe your attachments without judgment. You may find that many of the things you cling to are not as essential as you once thought. This awareness is the first step toward loosening your grip. And remember, detachment does not mean isolation. You can still love deeply, work passionately, and engage with the world fully. But you do so with an understanding that nothing is permanent. You cherish the present moment without fearing its end. This kind of detachment brings clarity and peace, not loneliness or emptiness. The Buddha once said, "Attachment leads to suffering." This is a simple yet profound truth. When we cling to things, we inevitably suffer when they change or leave us. But when we cultivate detachment, we learn to flow with life rather than fight against it. We understand that all things come and go, and that this is the natural order of the universe. Letting go of the ego and its attachments is not about losing yourself. It is about finding the true self that exists beyond labels and definitions. It is about experiencing life as it is, without the need to control it or make it fit into the narrow confines of what we think it should be. So, my dear listener, begin today. Start with one small thing, perhaps a worry or a desire that has been occupying your mind. Gently loosen your grip on it. Allow it to be, without needing to control or fix it. Notice how this simple act of letting go brings a sense of ease to your heart. This is the path to peace. This is the way of detachment. And in this practice, you will find that you are never truly alone. The world is vast and interconnected, and by letting go of your attachments, you open yourself to a deeper connection with all beings. You realize that your true essence is beyond the ego, beyond the things you cling to. It is boundless, free, and at peace. Finding connection in all beings, the interconnectedness of life. In the quiet moments of our lives, we often feel alone. But as we pause to reflect, we begin to notice something profound. We are all connected. Just as the roots of a tree intertwine with those of its neighbors, our lives are woven together in a vast tapestry of existence. This idea of interconnectedness is at the heart of Buddhist teachings. Understanding it can help us overcome feelings of loneliness and find joy in our shared humanity. When you walk outside and feel the breeze on your face, think about how that same breeze is touching everything around you. The trees, the flowers, and even the people passing by. We are all part of the same environment, breathing the same air and sharing the same moments. This shared experience reminds us that we are not alone. We are part of a larger whole, a community of beings living, growing, and experiencing life together. Consider the metaphor of a pond. When you throw a stone into the water, it creates ripples that spread out in all directions. Each ripple affects the surrounding water, just as our actions and feelings affect those around us. When we are kind, it creates positive ripples that can reach others, even if we don't see the impact right away. Each small act of kindness can connect us to someone else, creating a chain of compassion that can brighten someone's day. Buddhism teaches us about the concept of interbeing. This term, coined by Thich Nhat Hanh, emphasizes that nothing exists in isolation. Each of us is shaped by our environment, our relationships, and our experiences. The joy we feel is often intertwined with the joy of others. When we see someone smile, it can lift our spirits. When we help someone in need, we not only help them, but we also help ourselves by finding meaning and purpose in our actions. Have you ever felt a connection with a stranger? Perhaps while waiting in line, you shared a laugh or a moment of understanding. These brief interactions remind us that we are all part of the same human family. We may come from different backgrounds or cultures, but we share common emotions: joy, sadness, love, and fear. Recognizing this shared humanity can help us feel less alone, even in our darkest moments. Meditation can help deepen our understanding of interconnectedness. When we sit quietly and focus on our breath, we can expand our awareness beyond ourselves. As we inhale, we can think of the air that has traveled across the world, nourishing countless beings. As we exhale, we can send our good wishes and compassion to all those who share this planet with us. In these moments of meditation, we cultivate a sense of belonging to something greater than ourselves. As we explore this interconnectedness, we also learn about the importance of compassion. Compassion is the bridge that connects us to others. It allows us to empathize with their struggles and joys. When we recognize that someone else is suffering, we naturally want to help. This instinct to care is rooted in our shared experience of being human. By nurturing compassion within ourselves, we can foster deeper connections with those around us. Imagine a world where everyone acts with compassion. It would be a place filled with understanding, support, and kindness. In such a world, loneliness would have no place because we would all feel seen and valued. We could find solace in the fact that we are not alone in our feelings. Everyone experiences struggles, and everyone needs love and support. Let's also think about our connections with nature. Nature is a beautiful reminder of our interconnectedness. The plants and animals around us are not just separate entities. They are part of the same ecosystem. When we care for the environment, we are also caring for ourselves. The health of our planet directly impacts our well-being. By nurturing nature, we cultivate a sense of belonging and connection to the earth and its inhabitants. In Buddhism, we often speak about metta, or loving kindness. This practice encourages us to extend our love and good wishes to all beings. It's a powerful reminder that love is not limited to those we know. We can send our thoughts of compassion to everyone, including those we have never met. This practice helps us break down the barriers of separation, reminding us that we are all deserving of love and happiness. As we develop this sense of interconnectedness, we can also begin to let go of our fears of loneliness. Instead of seeing solitude as a burden, we can view it as an opportunity to connect with ourselves and the world around us. In these moments of quiet, we can reflect on our relationships and consider how we can nurture them. This self-awareness allows us to cultivate deeper connections with others. It's essential to remember that every person you encounter has their own story. They have faced their own challenges and joys. By being open to these stories, we can foster genuine connections. A simple smile or a kind word can create a ripple effect, encouraging others to share their experiences and connect with us on a deeper level. In conclusion, feeling alone is a natural part of being human. But through the teachings of Buddhism, we can learn to embrace the truth of our interconnectedness. Each of us plays a unique role in the tapestry of life. By nurturing compassion, understanding, and awareness, we can find connection not only within ourselves but also with all beings around us. Remember, you are never truly alone. You are part of a vast, beautiful web of life that connects us all. The middle path: balance in relationships and solitude. In the heart of Buddhist teachings lies a concept known as the middle path. It teaches us that balance is essential for a fulfilling life. When we think about our relationships and moments of solitude, this balance becomes even more important. Many people struggle between wanting to connect with others and feeling the need for time alone. Finding the middle path can help us navigate these feelings. Life often presents us with extremes. On one end, we may feel overwhelmed by our social obligations. We rush from one gathering to the next, trying to please everyone. On the other end, we might withdraw completely, choosing isolation over connection. Both extremes can leave us feeling unsatisfied. The middle path encourages us to find a harmonious way to balance our need for companionship with our need for solitude. Consider how the Buddha himself approached relationships. He engaged with people, teaching them and sharing his insights. Yet, he also took time to be alone, reflecting and meditating. This practice allowed him to gain clarity and wisdom. By finding a balance between being with others and spending time alone, he was able to fulfill his purpose effectively. When we spend too much time in solitude, we might miss the richness of human connection. Friends and family provide support, love, and joy. These relationships can enrich our lives, offering new perspectives and experiences. Sharing our thoughts and feelings with others helps us understand ourselves better. It reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. Conversely, when we overcommit to social engagements, we may lose sight of our own needs. We can become drained, feeling like we're giving more than we're receiving. This imbalance can lead to resentment and burnout. Recognizing when to step back and seek solitude is crucial. Taking time for ourselves helps recharge our spirits and allows us to return to our relationships with fresh energy and perspective. To practice the middle path, we can start by observing our habits. Notice when you feel the urge to isolate yourself and when you feel overwhelmed by others. Ask yourself, am I seeking connection out of genuine desire, or am I avoiding something within myself? This self-awareness can guide you toward a healthier balance. Incorporating mindfulness into our daily lives can also help us find this balance. Mindfulness encourages us to be present in each moment, whether we are alone or with others. When we are with friends, we can practice active listening, truly engaging with what they say. When we are alone, we can embrace the quiet, using it as a time for reflection and personal growth. One simple practice is to set aside specific times for both socializing and solitude. For example, plan regular meetups with friends or family, but also schedule moments just for yourself. This could be a quiet morning with a book, a walk in nature, or meditation. Having these designated times allows you to appreciate both aspects without feeling guilty. Another way to navigate the middle path is to cultivate a sense of community. Engage with groups that share your interests or values. This way, when you do spend time with others, it feels fulfilling and meaningful. You are not just filling your calendar but building relationships that nurture your spirit. At the same time, don't hesitate to take breaks when you need them. It's perfectly okay to say no sometimes. Let's not forget the role of compassion in our relationships. Compassion, both for ourselves and others, is essential. When we are kind to ourselves during lonely moments, we can recognize them as opportunities for growth. Instead of viewing solitude as a negative state, we can see it as a time to reflect on our thoughts and feelings, to understand ourselves better. When we practice compassion towards others, we build deeper connections. We learn to appreciate our friends' struggles and joys, fostering empathy. This understanding can enrich our relationships and create a supportive environment where everyone feels valued and heard. Additionally, practicing gratitude can enhance our experience of relationships and solitude. When we appreciate our connections, we deepen our bonds. A simple thank you can go a long way in showing someone you value their presence in your life. Similarly, being grateful for your alone time can shift your mindset. Instead of feeling lonely, you can recognize it as a precious opportunity for self-care and reflection. Remember that the middle path is not a fixed destination but a continuous journey. As we navigate life's ups and downs, our needs will change. What feels balanced today may not feel the same tomorrow. Being adaptable and open to change is part of the practice. In this way, the middle path guides us to live a life of harmony, where we can cherish our relationships while also valuing our moments of solitude. By balancing connection and solitude, we cultivate a rich, fulfilling life that nourishes our spirit and helps us grow. So, let us walk this path together, embracing both the company of others and the beauty of our own solitude. With each step, we learn more about ourselves, about others, and about the interconnectedness of all beings. In finding this balance, we can truly thrive. The role of meditation in overcoming loneliness. In the quiet corners of our minds, we often find a profound sense of solitude. Sometimes, this solitude feels heavy and isolating. However, there is a powerful tool available to us that can help lift that weight: meditation. In this practice, we can discover the beauty and strength that lies within our aloneness. Meditation is like a gentle breeze that clears the clouds of our thoughts. It invites us to sit quietly, close our eyes, and turn our attention inward. When we meditate, we are not trying to escape from our feelings of loneliness. Instead, we are inviting them in. We sit with those feelings, allowing them to be part of our experience without judgment. In this space, we begin to understand that loneliness is not our enemy but a teacher. When you start to meditate, you may find your mind racing with thoughts. I should be doing something else, or I feel so lonely right now. This is perfectly normal. It is part of the journey. As you sit, acknowledge those thoughts and let them drift away like leaves on a river. With time, you will learn to focus on your breath, the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Each breath can ground you in the present moment, reminding you that you are alive, you are here, and you are enough. Many people think that meditation is about achieving a blank mind or a state of complete peace. However, it is much more about acceptance. It teaches us to be present with whatever we are feeling, whether that's joy, sadness, or loneliness. As we accept our feelings without trying to change them, we learn to embrace our solitude. We can begin to see that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. Instead, it can be a chance to connect deeply with ourselves. Through regular meditation, we cultivate mindfulness, a state of awareness that allows us to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. When we are mindful, we can notice patterns in our feelings of loneliness. We might find that they often arise during specific moments or situations. By recognizing these patterns, we can respond to our loneliness with compassion rather than fear. Imagine sitting in a quiet room, observing your thoughts as if they were clouds passing by in the sky. Some clouds may look dark and heavy, while others may be light and fluffy. In meditation, we learn not to cling to any particular cloud. Instead, we watch them come and go. This practice reminds us that emotions are temporary. Just as a storm eventually passes, so too will feelings of loneliness. Meditation also helps us cultivate a sense of compassion, first for ourselves and then for others. When we sit quietly, we can reflect on the shared experience of loneliness. Millions of people around the world feel this way at some point. Recognizing that we are not alone in our loneliness can help us connect with others, even if it is in our thoughts. We can send out wishes of peace and happiness to those who may be feeling lonely too. This practice of compassion creates a ripple effect, helping to dissolve the barriers of isolation. As we continue our meditation practice, we may find that the spaces of loneliness begin to change. Instead of feeling empty or hollow, we start to experience a sense of fullness. In those moments of stillness, we can tap into a profound connection with ourselves and, ultimately, with the world around us. We learn to appreciate the beauty of being alone, recognizing it as an opportunity to nurture our inner self. Moreover, meditation teaches us the art of detachment. We learn not to cling to our feelings or our thoughts, which can sometimes lead us to deeper loneliness. When we detach from the need for constant company or validation, we free ourselves to explore who we are at our core. We realize that our worth is not tied to how many friends we have or how often we are socializing. Instead, our value comes from within, from our ability to be at peace with ourselves. As we develop this inner peace, we find that loneliness transforms into a rich source of creativity and insight. Many artists, writers, and thinkers throughout history have used solitude as a catalyst for their greatest works. When we embrace our alone time, we allow our minds to wander, to dream, and to create. Nature of our existence, it's important to recognize that everything is interconnected. Just like a web, our lives are connected to others in ways we might not see. When one strand of the web is pulled, it affects the entire structure. Understanding this interconnectedness helps us realize that we are never truly alone. Our thoughts, actions, and feelings ripple out, influencing those around us. Embrace this connection and recognize the impact you can have on others' lives. Let's talk about the importance of letting go. Often, we cling to past experiences, allowing them to define us. But just as leaves fall from trees in autumn, we too must learn to let go of what no longer serves us. This doesn't mean forgetting. It means acknowledging and moving forward. In Buddhism, the concept of anicca, or impermanence, teaches us that everything is in a constant state of change. By accepting this truth, we can find freedom and peace. As we approach the end of our journey, let's focus on the present moment. The past is gone, and the future is uncertain. What matters is now. Engage fully with your life. Taste your food. Feel the wind on your face, and listen to the laughter of friends. Each moment is a gift, waiting to be unwrapped. By immersing ourselves in the present, we cultivate gratitude, which fosters inner peace. Remember, the journey to inner peace is ongoing. It requires practice, patience, and persistence. Just as a seed grows into a tree over time, our inner peace blossoms through consistent effort. Set aside time each day for reflection and mindfulness. Even a few minutes of quiet can help center your thoughts and recharge your spirit. Finally, embrace your unique path. Everyone's journey is different. What works for one person may not work for another. Trust your intuition and listen to your heart. Explore various practices, meditation, yoga, nature walks, or simply sitting in silence. Discover what resonates with you and make it a part of your daily life. In conclusion, the journey to inner peace is not about perfection but about progress. Celebrate your small victories along the way. When you feel lonely, remember that it's an opportunity for growth. Reach out to others, practice compassion, and nurture your connection with the world. Embrace solitude as a powerful teacher and continue seeking the calm within. As you move forward, may you find peace in every breath, joy in every moment, and love in every connection. Your journey is uniquely yours, and within you lies the power to transform loneliness into a path of wisdom and understanding.